Thank you for coming today. Joining me today are our Mayor of Baltimore City, Mayor Brandon Scott, Danny Murphy, the Deputy Commissioner of our Compliance Bureau, and Police Officer Matt Klinkenstein of the Northeast District in the Baltimore Police Department. Today, we are very pleased to announce another major milestone in our efforts to transform the Baltimore Police Department and better serve our community. This week, we implemented our new stops, searches, and arrest policies, which provide the foundation for constitutional and effective policing. To be clear, these policies do not handcuff our police officers. Quite the opposite, our new policies and training guide our officers on how to effectively fight crime while building public trust. Our new policies and training help our officers to fight crime the right way and enable the Baltimore Police Department to be a more professional, proactive, and confident agency. We work collaboratively with the Department of Justice, the Consent Decree Monitoring Team, our BPD officers, and our community to ensure our policies and stop, search, and arrest training embrace, number one, national best practices, constitutional requirements, and community-oriented practices that reflect what our residents want to see from our police department. These new policies cover 11 different areas, including proactive law enforcement practices that help build community trust, fair and impartial policing, and requiring officers to use the most effective and least intrusive response to violations to end the over-enforcement of minor violations that has damaged community trust and collaboration. In preparation for the publication of these policies, our sworn personnel completed several modules of e-learning, 16 hours of in-class scenario-based training on topics such as fair and impartial policing and how to conduct constitutional stops, searches, and arrests. We have consistently received positive feedback from our officers on how this training has been engaging and will help them in enforcing the law effectively in a way that builds community trust. The department will provide additional training on stops, searches, and arrests in 2021, and it will be part of an annual in-service training moving forward to ensure that our officers receive continued training on this critical topic. With the revised stop, searches, and arrest policies now going live, accountability measures will be implemented to gauge the policy's success, not only by the Department of Justice and the monitoring team, but within the Compliance Bureau of our department. In addition to the new stop, searches, and arrest policies, the department is retraining the entire department in crisis intervention and behavioral health to promote safer encounters between the police and our community. And there is more to come in 2021. We have trained more now than a third of our department in EPIC, which is an acronym for Ethical Policing is Courageous, which is a peer intervention program that trains officers across all ranks to intervene in potentially problematic situations to keep our community and our officers safe. This program, which was created in New Orleans, is foundational to culture change and is now attracting national attention as a necessary step forward in policing. Now, after we train all of our officers in EPIC, we will then train the entire department on one of the most comprehensive community policing plans in the nation. At the heart of the community policing plan is to improve police-community relations and to reduce crime and disorder through collaborative problem-solving partnerships with the community. This plan and the implementation of the training will provide the building blocks toward institutionalizing a true community policing philosophy and will give our officers the tools to build a safer community working hand in hand with the community we serve. Additionally, we have upcoming community policing training workshops to engage with members of our community in shaping the curriculum of the plan on topics including the community history, policing lesser offenses, and problem-oriented policing. Residents can find out more information about these workshops on our social media platforms. All of the department's revised policies and training have included feedback from our officers and from members of the public. And as we implement these new policies, we will continue to transform our department into one that the community wants, needs, and most importantly, deserves, by focusing on the importance of de-escalation techniques, reasonable and prudent uses of force, accountability, transparency, and a true community policing-focused department. Based on my experience and the feedback from our officers, these new policies will go a long way toward helping us rebuild trust and our relationships with the community. And for that reason, the importance of this milestone cannot be overstated. So I want to thank Deputy Commissioner Murphy, members of our Education and Training Division, all the members of the Compliance Bureau for all of their hard work in providing this essential training to better serve our community. Over the last 2 years, the department has taken great strides in updating policies and providing best training to our officers working hard to transform our department. And as we enter a new phase of implementation of the reforms needed to comply with the consent decree, we're becoming a more community-minded police department in partnership with our community. So this, along with the rollout of our new records management system this year, will also create better systems of accountability, reforming our department and complying with the consent decree. Now, at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Officer Matt Klingenstein to speak about his experience with stop searches and arrest training. Officer?
Commissioner. Good afternoon. I'm Officer Matt Klingenstein. I'm assigned to the Northeast District. I'm currently assigned to patrol, and I'm going to give you a little bit of my experiences with the training and how it relates to how I work on the streets with the community. So I attended the training through the academy. The academy training was very straightforward, clear and concise. It gave you numbers on the way we used to do things and the way we do things now, and how they give a more positive approach and perception of the police with the public. Now, taking that training and actually applying it to real-world situations, as you're on the street, it gives you more avenues, more tools when you're interacting with the public, so you can take the appropriate actions, basically to say, while I'm working with this individual, what can I do to make the public perceive me as doing what's appropriate and how they can look at the police department in a better light. Now, at the same time, it also gives me the ability to explain to citizens or the people that you're dealing with on what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how you're going to do it. And you can also give them information to enlighten them on what they can do to see what you're doing, how they can feel like they're involved in the change in the police department, and what they can do to have a better police department to serve them. Now, based on that, I've had some experiences on the street where I've had citizens just observing the actions that I've taken during an incident. And at the end of the incident, they come to me and they say, "Officer, you did an outstanding job. Thank you for the way that you did things." And I took what I had from the training and applied it to that specific situation and said, what are my options? What is the best, least intrusive way to handle this situation? And at the end of the situation, there was no arrest made. Everything was handled properly. And the public actually spoke to me and told me their perception was a very positive one. And that's what we're trying to accomplish as a police department, and take the appropriate actions so the police department is seen in a great light and trusted by the community. Commissioner?
Thank you, Officer. You did a great job. We really appreciate that. I failed to mention we were actually joined by Director Shantae Jackson of our mayor's office. But at this time, I do want to turn it over to our mayor for comments.
Thank you, Commissioner Harrison. Thank you, Deputy Commissioner Murphy. Thank you, Officer, for patrolling and actually patrolling the Northeast District where I live. Thank you. While we know we have much work ahead, I am proud of the progress that BPD has already made to reforming itself into a constitutionally operating police force as a part of this process. I want to thank the Commissioner, the Deputy Commissioner, and the consent decree monitoring team for their hard work throughout this process. I want to also thank all of the officers who have taken their responsibility and the responsibility of the consent decree seriously. You are helping to change the culture of this department. As mayor, let me be very clear, I am fully committed to the reforms of the consent decree. This is not an either or for me. Being fully committed to improving the department is the very thing that will enable our officers to do their work effectively to reduce violence in our city's neighborhoods. This is about the hard, necessary work of our department and our officers earning residents' trust, as you just heard, and becoming reliable resources within our community. This consent decree process, in tandem with stronger partnership with our local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies and the implementation of a coordinated public safety vision underneath Director Jackson are all needed to build public trust and bring public safety, true public safety, to Baltimore. This process will continue to help us build trust with our residents while increasing partnerships to reduce violence. For my part, I am committed to transparency around our progress with the consent decree. We plan to hold quarterly press conferences like this one to report on that progress. Everyone in our community should know what's going on with the consent decree and know how to be a part of that process. To that end, it is important to note that the compliance with the consent decree is the responsibility of the entire city of Baltimore, not just BPD. I want to thank all of our residents who have provided feedback on draft policies throughout the process. The policies BPD is training officers on have been intentionally crafted with community input, something that a young Brandon Scott would have never thought possible here in the city of Baltimore. And as we enter a new phase of the consent decree, community involvement will be essential. I encourage all of our residents to get involved in the upcoming trainings to ensure the way that we move forward is true to Baltimore and reflects the needs of our communities. That is the only way this process will take root and help build a department that we can not only be proud of, but that reflects our community and is responsive to the needs of our communities. My administration will remain focused on the coordination of a public safety strategy that does not just involve BPD, but engaging our city agencies and our community partners in the work of reducing violence. The Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement will be integral in that work. I understand that the consent decree is long-term work. This is not overnight work, and I want to assure that everyone that they know that we will continue to act with urgency to address the immediate causes of violence that happen each and every day. But as I said earlier, this is not an either-or. It has to be both. Other cities that have gone through this process have seen fewer complaints against officers and increased trust between the police and the communities they serve, while also seeing violent crime significantly reduced in their cities. Reforming the department around constitutional policing is a prerequisite for residents to have trust in the department. And without that trust, residents will continue to feel uneasy about helping our officers effectively prevent and solve crime here in Baltimore. Thank you, Mr. Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your leadership. We are reforming and transforming the Baltimore Police Department. All of our active and in-draft policies can be seen on our transparency page on our website, along with BPD reform calendar that shows the public comment periods for draft policies and training. We also know that none of this would be effective without the input and support from you, the residents of Baltimore. So we ask you to continue to work with us by participating in our virtual workshops, provide feedback on our policies and training, and participating in our monthly virtual meetings in our districts. Together, we ask that you join us in transforming our police department into one we need and one we deserve. Thank you. Questions? Any questions?
This is nice. Oh, okay. Do you want me to stand up here?
You don't have to.
Oh, okay. So I know you've talked about it throughout this press conference, but as it pertains to the consent decree, overall, how does your department measure transparency and police accountability? And in your opinion, is BPD achieving that? Well,
I think we're measuring, if I were to reflect back on comments from the public hearing, there was very positive praise from the monitoring team, the DOJ, and the judge on how we are progressing. We're not nearly where we need to be, but we're progressing at a good pace. The monitoring team, Department of Justice, and the judge, Bradar, are all pleased with the progress we're making. With training, with policy, with training, now with implementation. With accountability and transparency, I think they're pleased that we are now in a place that's far better than where we were. We're not always where we want to be because the technology that is coming, that we need, helps us with more systems of accountability that we don't quite have yet because we're still in a paper-based environment. But I think they're pleased with the progress we're making, the trajectory that we're on. I would say that we're all pleased. I'm pleased. I think, I can't speak for the mayor, I think he's pleased, but certainly if you listen to what came out of the most recent public hearing, they're pleased with the progress that we're making.
Mayor Scott, may I?
Yeah, I think the commissioner hit the nail on the head. We are not where we need to be or we want to be, but we're in a significant better place than we were. I think we all have to remind ourselves of where we were when this process started, and also be reminded for the public that this is not just something where we're going to be measuring ourselves. This process has two groups of people when you think about the monitoring team, the DOJ, and the judge, who will be letting everyone know if we're making progress or not, and they are pleased with the progress that we're making, but we're going to push each and every day for us to go even further with that progress.
Your response to the IG report for Marilyn Mosby, on Marilyn Mosby.
So I am only focused on my work and my job. We know that folks, lawyers, the Inspector General has sent that to other folks. They will determine what happens with that. For me, I'm focused on what I have to do each and every day to serve the citizens of Baltimore, not what someone else's job is doing. There you go.
Commissioner, of the many police reform proposals in Annapolis, perhaps the most significant is a proposal that would repeal the Law Enforcement Bill of Rights in Maryland. Do you support the repeal of the Law Enforcement Bill of Rights?
Well, I testified in 2 different bill hearings on yesterday, and what we support is a number of amendments to make sure that we have true accountability, true transparency, and that as the police commissioner, that I have, as any CEO, the final say on discipline, and that I'm able to take disciplinary action against members of our department when they step outside of the law, training, and policy. And when the actions are so egregious, I can take swift and decisive action. And so, I testified twice yesterday on 2 different bills. And so what we support, I support a comprehensive disciplinary structure that is fair, that applies for due process, but also gives the department and the executive both authority and autonomy to make swift, decisive decisions on discipline when necessary and when expected.
In your opinion, and based on your experience, what is the biggest hurdle in it from where you sit as a chief executive of a police department?
Well, I think the biggest hurdle is written within the law, and is the inability for me to take swift and decisive action, because certainly there is due process. Certainly I believe in due process, but there is an expectation that a CEO would be able to respond to what is presented to me and take decisive action. At this point, the law prohibits me from doing that.
I have some COVID questions, but I'll reserve if you want to finish on them.
About the 5th degree? Okay. All right, thank you guys.
Can I ask a mayor question about COVID related?
Do you want to do this all?
We can do it all. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Fine. Get out of the room.
Thanks.
No, that's a good idea.